Well, first, thank you everyone for taking some time out of your day and joining us on our Energy Explorer series. So excited to be here today. I'm Makita and I am an admissions coach at IPEC. And really the purpose of these Explorer series is just to really to connect with awesome people like Tara, just to see what she's doing, how she's doing it, and really how she's living out her purpose day to day. And really just about getting to the heart of things. So can't wait for this conversation to unfold. Let's go, Tara. Let's go. All right. So I think a great way to start is just really kind of letting us know who you are and just a little bit about your story.
All right. So my name's Tara Thurber. I am a mother of two. I've got a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old little girl. I live at the Jersey Shore. A little bit about me. I'm not going to go too far back here because then we'll be here for way over an hour. But I went to Montclair State University. I studied graphic design and photography. And when I got out of school, I kind of hit a wall right out of school. I had decided I didn't want to do design for other people. And I kind of felt that my artwork was my own. And I didn't have mentors. I didn't do an internship and kind of just felt like I was floating out there. But I was always the person that, people came to. Fast forward a little bit, I got into the mortgage industry, did some marketing, helped them out, open up some offices. And then when the mortgage industry crashed years ago, I found myself back into this playing field of fog, I guess I could say. I just couldn't see where my path was. And I ended up getting recruited into recruiting. I was on a path of helping small businesses. I also had opened up or started an art gallery with my best friend. And again, it was to help artists sell their artwork and get out there and be known. And I was always the connector of, this person, I know this person, you guys need to meet, and people would take off from there. So getting into recruiting, I felt, okay, this is a good thing for me. I was helping people, I was helping them get jobs, and, in and out of a couple of different recruiting agencies. And, I ended up moving down to the Jersey Shore about 10 years ago, and I was recruiting in the city. I had my first daughter, and doing a 5-hour-a-day commute was just not what I needed or wanted anymore. So I ended up going in-house and helping build one company to then, when I had my second daughter, learning that the company was being sold, and I was, okay, when are you coming back to work now? We're going to start a new company. So I actually forfeited, I guess I could say, my maternity leave with baby number 2. And I jumped head first into helping start a new company while doing all of the recruiting and building it internally. After about a year or two, it got toxic. I was in a toxic environment. I ended up getting sick. My mom ended up getting sick. I was just miserable. Growing up too, I was always kind of in alignment with drinking. Drinking was very big as I was growing up. And even throughout my social life, I was always the go big or go home person. I was always, out socializing. And it was, there was major ups and downs throughout my life because of drinking. And when I was faced with some scary sicknesses, I was faced with a toxic work environment that I had hit ground zero. I mean, I had a little bit of a mental breakdown. I just didn't know where I was going or what I was doing anymore. And I found that I was also starting to mask and hide behind a lot of these emotions and a lot of these trials and tribulations through drinking. And, it came to a really big head when I had a little bit of a breakdown, and basically I hit bottom hard, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I had always started journaling, trying to figure out, what is my purpose? What am I here for? And I was reaching out to people, trying to get answers or maybe ask questions just to try and figure it out. But I'll never forget, I had made the conscious decision to quit drinking. And as I made that decision, I also had started talking with this beautiful, beautiful woman, good girlfriend of mine to this day. She was doing life coaching, and I was doing a couple sessions with her. And as I was doing these sessions with her and this work, I started, trying to figure out where it is I was going next and what I was doing next. And that's when I started doing some research and really trying to figure out who I was and trying to hold myself up, but as well as being a mom of two young girls and, wanting the best for them, but knowing that if I was at rock bottom, how could I show up for them? How could I show up for myself? So I'm going to start crying already.
It's okay. I told you it's okay. It's okay. I told you it's okay. It's a safe space.
Anyways, fast forward a little bit, I ended up finding IPAC. And I got to say, IPAC, I think, saved my life in many, many ways. And it wasn't, the end result. It was the journey of going through the coaching program because I needed it internally to find myself again. And, my vision was, okay, I want to become a life coach. I want to help people, but I knew that I couldn't help people until I helped myself.
Yeah.
And that's when, I started the program. And it was a journey. I will, from 2019 and graduating in March of 2019, it was absolutely life-changing. Going through the coaching program and just experiencing everything.
Yeah.
Everything for me was life-changing, and it helped me answer questions about myself, and it helped me experience the vulnerability that I didn't think I was ever allowed to experience and to share with people, because I always had to be the rock. I was always fine. I was, everybody came to me with their problems, and at the end of the day, I wasn't fine. And I needed to acknowledge that.
That is, I want to just kind of highlight your journey a little bit and really give space to your story and so much of the importance of sharing it. Because I think when we talk about going to like a coach training program, we think about like a lot of the professional reasons why we want to do it. And then you start IPEC's program and then it's just like, wait, hold on. So it's like this transformational piece that goes along with it. And, IPEC, it's all about raising consciousness. And it's like one person at a time, but then you realize it kind of starts with you first. And in your story, you just, you talked about arts and going into school, and then it was kind of like a gray area. So then I was like, wow, the weather is so fitting for that. So it's like this gray area because you're like in a fog and you're not sure. And then you realize like you're a connector. And then life is happening, whether it was kids, whether it was with moving. And then as life is happening, it's almost like you're on this like hamster wheel.
Yeah.
But you realize like you were in a toxic environment, right? And then you hit ground bottom and you were wearing this mask and you were hiding, but then this wonderful moment happened where your consciousness really just rose and you made a decision, a courageous decision at that, to stop drinking. Because it's funny how you mentioned it was your alignment prior, but then you kind of cut that off and really just ask yourself what's next. So in connecting with others and getting support, you found your way through IPEC, and then it became like transformational. So I just wanted to give space in terms of just celebrating you and the courageous decisions and choices that you really made step by step. And your story is like still unfolding. But what I would really love, if you don't mind elaborating just a little bit more, is so you made this conscious decision to stop drinking, and then you found the program. In terms of your personal journey, how has alignment transformed in your life now?
It's kind of come full circle for me now. You know, I went through the program, and when I graduated, you know, I was still working a full-time job.
Yeah.
I was still caring for my little ones. I was still running the household, and I was doing, you know, my coaching work at night or on weekends or early in the morning. And when I graduated, I started Thurbercom, and I had taken on a couple of clients on the side while I was still doing recruiting for an agency. And, you know, in my mind, I wanted to marry the two, because life coaching and recruiting and career coaching, to me, it was all coming together. And knowing how much the coaching program and what I learned from IPAC of the different energy levels and showing up for yourself and being able to change the way you look at struggles and tribulations and trials that you're dealing with in life. I wanted to take everything that I had learned and just expand it and start helping others, because there's so much more than just helping somebody get a job, right? There's so much more than helping somebody fix their resume. And when it all comes down to it and you start peeling the layers back, there's that core of we're all humans and we're all going through something. And so as I, you know, after, I want to say about a year or so, I had this vision that I wanted to combine my recruiting with my life coaching.
Yeah.
And I had been talking with these two fantastic guys for over 7 years. I mean, we were just talking today, it was probably a 7-year-long interview process. Where, you know, they'd always reach out and it was either not the right time or the money wasn't there. We weren't in alignment. So we finally, after 7 years, they had reached out to me, and it was just like, hey, what's going on in your world now? What are you doing? And I said, well, I just graduated from IPAC. I started my life coaching career, but I'm still recruiting, and I have this vision. And these two guys took a chance, and I was hired, believe it or not, March 2nd of 2020, just before COVID hit, to bring this beautiful vision of life coaching and recruiting to life.
Yeah.
And that's how Define Talent began. We are a boutique recruiting agency that really hones in on the humanized process behind recruiting. And I bring to the table all of my life coaching skills. And that's really something important that I not only bring to candidates or clients that we're working with, but I bring it to my team. And I live by it. So I'm not only helping others to help them through the fog, because a lot of people are in the fog right now. I mean, a lot of people with COVID went into these black downward spirals.
Yeah.
And, you know, something that I just want to always, you know, bring out is to share the journey and to share that if you can look at things a little bit differently, it changes and it can help clear the fog.
Yeah.
You know?
You're saying so many important things, but I hear this too on just conversations that I have every day, just as an admissions coach. And when we talk about the vision, so at what point did you start really embracing your vision? And when I say embracing it, you have this love for recruiting, you have this love for people, and then you just thought about merging the two. So what was like that process for you in terms of like this doesn't have to just be a dream. This is something I could really put together.
Yeah. I think really, I have to say, being able to talk about the vision and being able to write and get it down on paper to make it real, I feel was where it all really started.
Mm-hmm.
Getting it out of my head and feeling support and feeling confident to talk with the team and these two gentlemen. I mean, when I first kind of approached the idea, I had those gremlins talking to me like, who do you think you are?
Talk about it. Yeah.
You can do this. You just got certified 6 months ago. Who do you think you are to be able to start something like this? And, but I'm so passionate about it. And, my team saw that through conversations. And once I was able to talk about it and allow myself to be vulnerable and share it with other people, that's when I was getting the feedback of, yes, Tara, yes. And that was huge for me because, being able to have a thought or take an idea and feel that I've got power behind it or feel empowered by it, I think was a huge change for me because I really didn't, I had never felt that way. And, even going back to drinking, that's a lot of it. I hid behind drinking because of these emotions and the vulnerability that I was always feeling. I hid behind it all. And it wasn't until, I want to say 3 to 6 months after I made the choice to quit drinking and to change my life and going through coaching that I started to realize I just saw everything so much more clear. And it was like IPAC kind of came onto my plate and it was like the skies opened and it was like, yes, Tara, this is it. And I finally just was like, my heart opened up and I felt I finally have my purpose.
Wow.
And that was huge for me because I always felt lost. I was always helping other people. I was always doing for other people and going through, trials and tribulations from when I was young all the way up.
Yeah.
And realizing that I needed to make some big changes in life. But the acknowledgement of it all really came through when I finally started allowing myself to be vulnerable and allowing myself to open up and discuss thoughts or ideas and my passions in order to have the buy-in from others, I guess, right? It's something
like getting buy-in from you first.
Yeah. And I needed that buy-in internally. And it was like, sure, I went and I got certified and I started with clients right away, but I didn't feel like I was in full alignment until I knew that I was able to see myself.
Yep. So, okay, I want to, that vulnerability word that you've been using a lot because, and really walking in the space of changing the narrative, right, of what vulnerability is. And oftentimes you hear it's not okay to be vulnerable, have this mask on and go. But the story that you're telling me, or at least of what I'm hearing, guys, let me know if you're hearing the same thing or what you're hearing, is how you learn to take the mask off and really embrace vulnerability as a strength. And then the minute you were able to do that, you were able to give acknowledging and validation to yourself, to your story, and even like grace to just, you know, your past and the things that you were struggling with. And then you learning to be in alignment with yourself, and everything else started falling into place. And especially I'm thinking when you're thinking about becoming a certified coach and then having your own practice and doing your own thing, how important that is. So if you can speak a little bit about that as well, when you're thinking about your vision and you want to do coaching, whether it is internally or on your own, just some important things to keep in mind as you move in that space. What would you say?
Vulnerability was always, it was and still is always hard for me. You know, it's crazy because even I turned 40 last year, and for me, holding myself accountable for my life and what I'm doing, but also making sure I can show my girls what it's like to be vulnerable, and that it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to take those masks off, because we are all human and we all need to own our own truth.
Yeah.
And once you can own your own truth, I think the sky's the limit to who you are as a human. And, you know, something that I had started on my 40th birthday, my birthday's on February 23rd. It's cold on February 23rd.
Yes.
And I decided that I was going to do a polar plunge for my 40th birthday.
Yes.
And I did it. We have a video of it. And I decided on that day that I was going to do it on the 23rd of every month for the first year of my 40s. And it was just something on the 23rd, you know, come March, I did it again. Come April, my 9-year-old joined me.
Wow.
And she was like, I'm doing this with you. And so she started jumping in with me on the 23rd of every month. And after a couple months, I'll never forget, there was one day, it was really, really cold. And her and I got to the beach and I said, you know, you don't have to do this. Like, you don't have to do this for me. And she stopped me dead in my tracks. And she said, Mom, I am not doing it for you.
Wow.
I'm doing it for me. And to me, I was just like,
that's your daughter.
That's it. And the vulnerable, you know, being able to take that journey with her now, it allows me to say, okay, I need to start voicing myself more. And I need to start sharing myself more and keeping those masks off and allowing the vulnerability to be out there. Because when you can be vulnerable, that's when you can show up as your highest self. And that right there was my internal purpose.
Yeah. Being your highest self.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to take a minute to pause to let the audience ask some questions, because I could just keep going. But any questions, feel free to just drop them in the question and answer chat, and I'll be sure to have Tara answer them. So feel free to drop them in now. And as they're rolling in, I'll just continue on with my questions. So now it's funny because now I'm looking at your story now, right? And I hear words of alignment, vulnerability, vision, using your voice, confidence. So as you are coaching now, how does that pour out into your coaching practice?
It's crazy because I have all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm human. I'm going to say to everybody, I have gremlins yelling at me. I have energy blockers all of the time.
Yeah.
And it's what I have is something that people that friends of mine or clients of mine, candidates of mine, they ask, how did you get to where you are today? And I'm like, a lot of internal work, right? And so taking what I've gone through and everything that I've learned along the way, it needs to be shared. It needs to be told to people, because I know during my journey, there was a lot of times that I felt so alone. And I felt that I had to hide my emotions and hide all of this, even through my professional path that I was taking. So being able to now take a step back and just allow people, when I'm speaking to them, giving them space. Giving them the space to share whatever they feel they need, they can share, but also making sure there's that trust in there.
Right.
Because the trust allows people to open up even more.
Yeah. And what would you say helps nurture that space of trust so that they can be vulnerable and really uncover who their highest self is?
I think one of the biggest or the most important things is to share with them my truth and relate. There's so many different ways that we all can relate to each other as humans.
Yes.
And I think that is, humanizing conversations, humanizing everything, to just say it's okay.
Yeah. It's okay.
It is.
Whatever it is, that acknowledging and validating, like, it's okay, because it's so easy to wear the mask and be who you feel like you were told to be, who you feel like you even told yourself you needed to be for one reason or the other. But it's okay that you are not those things, because maybe there's something else on the inside. So it's almost like like I think you said this earlier, really just peeling back the layers to really get to the core. And it makes me think of, we have many principles at IPEC, but we hold the truth, and everyone has the answers within inside of themselves. So it's literally just allowing the space so that they can uncover the answers that they already have, and not having to seek outside of your being.
Well, and I think too, something else that is extremely important to me is I learn from everybody I work with. And
it's another principle.
it's like I'll be working with a client that's going through something, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going through the same thing, but in a different way. So I'm coaching them, but I'm also coaching myself through it all.
Isn't that something?
And it happens too.
Yeah.
Everything comes into alignment where I'm dealing with something and I'm like, you ask the questions, why am I dealing with this right now? And then all of a sudden somebody comes to me and says, Tara, I'm dealing with this. And I'm like, what? I just got goosebumps. I'm like, I know. Okay.
Yeah, I get it. It's resonating. It's resonating. Yeah, it's almost on putting up a mirror. And another principle is each person we meet is our teacher and our student. Absolutely. And I approach every coaching conversation that way, because as they're letting you in, they're teaching you something, whether it is about themselves, about yourself, whether just it is about life, and really just taking that approach of learning. And then, sometimes the roles will then turn, but it's really giving the space for them to show up as authentically and genuinely. And sometimes the coaching session is the only place they get to do that. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. And so I love how you talked about the ocean plunge, and I was hoping you mentioned that. But what is it about that plunge that really is something that you commit to doing every month on the 23rd?
I think at first, when I first did it, it was so rejuvenating.
Mm-hmm.
And, I like resetting my mind, my body, and my spirit every single month. It's like hit reset every month, because it's every week we can hit reset, right? Every day we can hit reset. But the Ocean Plunge for me was mental, emotional, and all physical that came from that first plunge.
Yeah.
And then because of the way I felt afterwards, I said it out loud. And I said, I'm doing this on the 23rd of every month. And I held myself accountable. And that's something too, like, sure, 23rd of some months, it was nasty and rainy and cold. And I was just like, no, I said I was going to do this for myself. And it was not only me holding myself accountable, but now I've got little eyes watching. And I've got friends of mine or people that have seen, because I try and post it every single month. And it was just something to share, to say, this is something that I'm doing to reset. And I invite others to just think about it that way.
Yeah.
And when towards the end of that year, and when we came back to February 23rd this year, we did it again. And I said to myself, I'm going to just keep going on the 23rd of every month. I'm just going to keep doing it, because it's just a way to kind of wake myself up again. And I think that's huge, because there's so much that's going on around us.
Yes.
And I know that I'm affected by so many people's energy. I have find that I have always been an empath, and I can feel people's energy through a phone call, walking by them. I can just sense it. And so for myself, it's more of a cleansing, a monthly cleansing, so to speak. And it's helped me come into my truth and my alignment every month.
Wow.
And I'm not going to stop. It's something that my body now yearns for every month. And I think that is something that, for myself, to hold myself accountable for something like that. And it's also a form of self-care and self-love when you're doing something like that.
Yeah.
So moving it forward, it's going to keep going, and we'll see how many years it takes us into the future. But for right now, that's kind of my journey with it.
When I hear you talk about the plunge, I remember when you first talked about it, I thought it was just so great. It's just something, it's like an outward manifestation of the plunges that you took in your life internally, right?
Yeah.
But it also spoke to the power of like the reset, and how you're normalizing it and making it okay to pause for a second, because you're a mom, you're a business owner, like it's so many, your partner, you're so many different things, and you hold so many different priorities. And you just even saying it's okay just for me to just pause for a second and just give myself space.
Yeah.
Just like you give everyone else. Exactly.
And that's something, something that I've also implemented with my team is doing a 30-minute pause every morning. I want my team from 9 to 9:30 every morning to just do a pause, do a reset for the day, do something that is personal or professional, reading a chapter of a professional book, or making yourself a healthy meal.
Yeah.
And I find, sure, I could have said do it from 8:30 to 9, but I just felt that for our team as a whole, it's that reset, it's that extra time for when you're starting your workday, to be able to say, okay, let's clear the cobwebs that happened overnight, whether it's internally here or it's just externally stuff that we're dealing with.
Wow.
So I felt taking my monthly reset and trying to bring it in on a daily reset is something that I shared with my team, and they were extremely grateful, and they're extremely happy. And at the end of the week, we talk about it with each other. We if there's anything we learned or did, or maybe we didn't do, maybe we just slept in a little bit later that day. And I let them know that it's okay to do that.
It's okay.
We're all human. And in order for them to show up as the best version of themselves, I offered them that time to be able to do that.
So, okay, now you have me thinking, because so we've talked about just like the personal benefits of how you've just evolved and blossomed and really doing the work. And then now you're talking from a professional leadership perspective. And if there's one thing I hear on all of my calls is really wanting to use coaching skills for changing organizational culture. And that action that you just took, where you said from 9 to 9:30, do something for you. I'm like, what? Where do they do that? Is that normal? I have calls I need to make. Like, what are you saying? But you literally took something that was personal for you and said, okay, as a leader, let's shift something. So what would you say, whether it's a lead, I believe we lead from any position that we are in, but to someone that really wants to create change where they are organizationally, what would you say to that person?
I would say speak up. I think speaking up, use your voice. I think using your voice is powerful. Even if you think that it's not, just start it. One of the biggest things that I had started doing when I was at that ultimate low and wanting to make change, right? I was in this toxic environment. I wanted change so bad.
Yeah.
And it wasn't happening. And one thing I kept doing was I just kept throwing things out there. I kept equating it to just keep throwing the dots out there. Don't worry about what the end picture will be created with these dots, like a connect the dot. But as long as you keep throwing those dots out there, eventually down the road, through your journey, the picture will come together.
Yeah.
And if you don't use your voice and if you don't start putting things out there, how's the world going to know that you have something inside?
Yep.
Nobody can read our minds.
No one.
Nobody can read our internal thoughts and energies.
Yeah.
So if as a human, to want to make change and embrace any of those opportunities, you have to start by putting it out there and helping others see things differently. Shifting the lenses, changing the perspective of something, I think is really huge. And I think that's what I would say, whether, if you're in any type of situation where you're trying to make change or put change forward, it would be to speak up, because you know what? Somebody will eventually hear you.
And it happened with you.
Yes.
So you, that plunge is going to live with me, but really how you showed up in your personal life, that's just how it played out professionally for you. And then you were able to create now this business that you are the change that you want to see as a leader, and then you're nurturing that in your team as well. Yeah. So I think that's also what it sounds like, at least what I got, is as you're using your voice, if it's in a toxic environment or if you want to create change, and if it's still not working, it's like, which voice you're going to feed more inside of you? Because like you said, we hear those voices telling us, don't do it, we're not good enough, all of that. And then you have that voice of vision that's just like, do it. You got everything you need inside of you. You are everything, which voice are you going to feed? And if you feed that other voice that's encouraging the vision, people will be attracted to you. Yep. So, and that's pretty much what your story said, then you find two people that was willing to take a chance, you said. Yep. And then, the rest is history. So it's almost like I could hear this resonating so much in the conversations that I have daily, is if you take a plunge on yourself.
Yep.
And what you believe so passionately in, because it's aligning with your core values, literally my saying is, what's the best that can happen?
I like what's the best that can happen.
Yes. I got that. Because we can program ourselves and say, oh, what's the worst that can happen? But even that within itself creates an energy around it. Yeah. But like, what's the best is like, wait, the possibilities, let me explore the possibilities, because you never know. So it's like taking that plunge on what you believe so hard, so deep rootedly. And then, hey, if it doesn't exist, maybe you're the one that's going to create it. I say that too all the time.
And that's huge too, because, you know, it kind of, I like where you were going with that, because I'm also, it's like changing the way that you're talking to yourself, or that you're putting things out there. And, you know, I just had a session this morning with an individual, a young person, and we were talking about to-do lists, and it was, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And I said, now let's do something. How about let's change the I have to I get to.
Yes. Yeah.
And he went through his list, and I could feel the shift of his energy and the excitement of having the chance to get to do this.
Yes.
You know, get to do anything. And, you know, I find myself constantly putting myself in check, like, oh, I have to get my to-do list and everything that I have to do today. And I'm like, take a step back.
Hold on.
Something, and there's gratitude, right? And appreciation. And that right there can then lift your spirits.
Yes.
And, you know, it's what a crazy journey to have gotten to where I am today in this alignment through my own self-work. And all the tragedies that I've encountered over the past 2 years. I don't know where I'd be if I didn't know how to own my own truth through these tragedies and help others through tragedies. I mean, COVID really got to a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I hear stories of, you know, people bringing on different habits.
Yeah.
And I mean, over the past 2 years, the amount of people that I've known that have died. And, you know, whether it was taking their life or a tragedy happening. And I'm just like, okay, this is where we can all kind of help one another. Yeah. But I feel like that allows me to also say, listen, here's a safe space for you to come to and crumble, but just know you will get back up.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was crazy, because my husband last night said to me, you know, prior to IPAC and prior to everything, how did you talk to people?
That's a great question.
And I'm like, well, I didn't talk to them this way, because it's different. Like everything, it was like a complete 180 for me. And I feel like now being able to have gone through all the experiences I've gone through and sharing with people. I mean, people may say, oh, you know, look at her, she's got everything together. And I'll be the first one to tell you, oh, no, I don't.
You don't.
I am a hot mess at times, more often than not.
Yep.
But I try and trust my process. I try and trust where I'm at, because everybody and everything that's coming to me, whether it's tragic or happiness, it's all coming to me for a reason.
Yeah.
And I'm here to help coach those people, but I'm also taking it back to myself and not recycling, but reusing the words in order to show up as the best version of myself for them, so that they feel safe enough to be vulnerable, to then be able to see through the fog and show up as the best version of themselves.
I love how you brought it back to the fog. That is, so Okay, a couple of things. I think about mastery, right? So we learn at IPEC that it's not about perfection, but mastering. So every time that you talk, I hear how you're just mastering your life, mastering your profession, mastering just everything. And mastering is really just about evolving and doing things differently, doing things better than the time before, and really giving yourself grace. Like, we don't have it all together, even, as coaches, but I feel like coaches, to be a coach is a constant accountability, because when your clients come to you, we also talk about walking the talk, where it's not just about us, coaching so that it sounds good, but us living the life that we have been trained and taught, and how realistic that is. And each person is different. So how it shows up for you is one thing, how it shows up for me is a different thing. But as we do it consciously, because that's one of the first things that you mentioned, that we do it consciously, we're then able to pour out to someone else. And then we talk about how they're getting something, but you're getting something as well, and living life from this true win-win perspective. And it's just like, oh, wait. Oh yeah, like, oh, that's for real. That just wasn't a principle. That just wasn't something like, I can actually do this. So it's so relevant, the things that we talk about in training and just the coaching that we have. And it's relevant to personal life and then professional life. And then you just learn how to master that at each level. So, oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, look at the time. So if there's anyone at the time is winding down, anyone has any last minute questions for Tara, please take a minute and drop them here. You can check out all our past episodes. It's in the chat, where we just connect with other coaches and just talk about coaching life and life pre-coach and life post-coach, and how that resonates with us. Tara, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, please tell us your deets.
All right. Is it easy enough to put in the chat, or what? There we go.
Yep,
Define
right
Talent.
there.
Define Talent is our boutique recruiting agency. I can be found at tara@definetalent.com. I'm extremely responsive, and I would love to hear from anybody. Yeah,
anybody. She'll meet you where you are. And if anyone would love to book a conversation with an admissions coach like myself, feel free in the chat. You can click on that link, and we could just discover and explore more just about your vision, your journey, and what's next for you, as Tara so eloquently said. Thank you so much for sharing your story, being vulnerable. And I made notes for myself, just like with the first time when we spoke. So thank you so much just for being courageous enough and just share. So I thank you. Thank you to the audience for taking your time out. And we look forward to connecting with you on another Energy Explorer Live series.